Okay, Paul, go ahead and start the meeting.
Okay, well, I'll call the meeting to order. This is the April 7th meeting of the Law and Public Safety Committee meeting. Those in attendance are, I don't know how we're going to do this. Sue, Vicky, Jim, Steve, Kevin, Mike, Casey,
Mark.
Rob, Scott. I think I got everybody.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. Lucas, would you start with the agenda? Anything special to start with, or just take it from the top?
We'll take it from the top. Paul, we have one possible add-on to this, but we'll just scroll through. The first one, Mark's prepared an emergency declaration. I'll have Mark talk about how he compiled this, and I know there's some discussion floating back and forth about the progression. So, Mark, why don't you take over?
Okay, and Jim asked me to put this together, and there were two ways we could have gone. One, we could have just had Kevin go ahead and, as in some places, issue a proclamation, but since we're not a charter city, he really doesn't have the authority to do it. So faced with that, then the options were having council declare an emergency now. I thought it would be better to establish something permanent. So what this ordinance does, if there's a situation like this again, you know, it may be a tornado, who knows what it may be. This gives the city the ability to declare an emergency. And the only real variable, and the way I did it is the way most other communities have done it, where the mayor is the first person or someone he designates that has the authority to do it. If he was unable, then I named the safety service director. And if the safety service director, I named the chief of police, which is, again, this is how most communities did it. I know Tank contacted me the other night. I spoke to him and Sue, and they had a recommendation that we have the president of council in the line of authority. And then in talking to Paul today, his recommendation was that it go mayor first, then president of council, then safety service director. So it's really, it's up to the law committee and council, I guess, what order they would want that to be in. I just look at my job is to prepare the legislation. So if there's no other questions on what the ordinance actually provides for, I guess that's really the only thing we really need to clean up is who has the authority to do it.
So did,
My comment, I'd sent an email to all of you, was Kevin or his designated person. And then my suggestion was the president of council next, because that's the second highest elected official in the city of Sharonville. And it's just a personal preference. I would prefer an elected official making that decision, you know, if Kevin's not available, and he could designate someone else who is not an elected official. It leaves all his options open, but that is just my own feeling. I really like an elected person who is responsible to the voters if we have to make such a decision.
so apparently my email didn't get delivered last night.
I got it.
You got it?
Yeah, I don't know. How does that play into this?
Yeah, so that B1 section that says mayor is used here and says the mayor of the city of Sharonville, technically, actually it's not technically, it's the law, says that if I am out of the city or absent, the president of council becomes the acting mayor in my stead. So my suggestion would be to change B1 to simply say the mayor or acting mayor of the city of Sharonville. And then the second one could say in the mayor's or acting mayor's, in the mayor and or acting mayor's absence. So basically that puts Vicky or whoever is the president of council, because the law says that if I'm gone and not in the city and or otherwise incapable of performing the duties, then the president of council automatically becomes the acting mayor with all the duties of mayor. So I think that kind of takes care of what I was hearing from Sue and Paul. And technically, Vicky or whoever the president of council is the mayor of the city upon my absence. So even the way it's written, I think Vicky would still take precedent over the safety service director. But if we want it to be clear and make it clear, I would just add into B1 the mayor or acting mayor of the city of Sharonville, and then add 2 to say in the mayor's and acting mayor's absence, because there is nothing in statute that goes beyond those 2 roles. And that's when you start getting into safety service director, police chief, and things along those lines. So that was my email last night that I'm not sure why didn't get to all of you.
Kevin, I just found your email in spam. Somehow all of I'm getting anything I get from the city is going straight to my spam.
There you go.
Same
So
thing
everybody
here.
should look at their spam. When you guys were just talking about emails, I just went to my spam and that's where it's at.
Oh, thank you.
Y'all don't like my junk mail, I guess.
There you go. That's an easy
Unknown
change.
source, Kevin.
Yeah, that's an easy change for me to make if everybody's okay with that.
I'm
I'm
fine
good.
with it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That sounds good to me.
Perfect. That takes care of it, right?
For me.
Okay.
In addition to that, there was only one more change from the draft that was sent out to you. I asked Mark to add one provision, and that is down in section 2, which would give us, well, you could read it. It's basically, if there's the potential for some grant money from federal or state, this ordinance addresses that as well. Section 2 is the new addition that was not in your draft version, if everybody wants to read that.
Okay.
Right before the emergency clause.
I should have it up right here on your screen.
Yeah.
Everything good with that?
Yeah, I'm good.
Fine.
If there's no more questions on that, on this ordinance, we will go to the next one,
Okay.
which is, oh, I'm sorry, did somebody have a question? This one's related to the police department and
Can everybody hear me? It's Steve.
Yes.
Yes.
Steve, why don't you take over?
Well, I'm going to log out of the meeting for a second and log back in.
Seems like he's having connection problems.
Is it the VPN? I'm going through the VPN. Should I be just on my internet?
Josh, that's a question for you. VPN or straight internet connection?
Yeah, Steve, if you're on the VPN, you'll disconnect. That'll definitely improve your connection quality to Zoom.
You guys want to have Scott take over his items while we're
Looks
waiting
like-
for Steve?
Well, it looks like Steve's back.
Okay.
Are you back with us, Steve? No, maybe not. I can see him. There
Yeah,
he
I don't know. It's still really jumpy.
is. Okay.
We could hear you, Steve, though.
Yeah, we could hear you.
Okay, if I my audio breaks up, let me know and I will call in instead of doing video and audio on the computer. So you want me to just jump into this, Jim? Is that what you want me to do?
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. First one is we're request for a ordinance, I guess. With the modifying the collective bargaining agreements with the patrol officers and the sergeants. And meetings earlier this week, or I guess it was late last week, with both unions, we've come to an agreement. The plan is for the police department to modify its work schedule and go to a 12-hour shift during this COVID-19 pandemic. That allows us to maintain minimum staffing levels and keep some officers and essential employees in ready reserve should we start losing members of quarantine by the health department. Observe and on-call status available.
I think Steve needs to go to call in. Anyone else?
Steve, why don't you just call in instead?
Cutting out.
Contracts are current.
He was really breaking up on mine.
Yeah, mine too.
No.
Mine also.
Yeah, it looks like his streaming was frozen there. And I don't know if it jump cut or if we picked up where he left off.
Looks like he's going to call in.
Is this any better? I stopped my video.
Well, that's much better.
All right, we'll see what happens here now. The current collective bargaining agreements allow the chief of police to declare an emergency, which will stop some of the things and allow me to do some things in terms of scheduling and those type of things outside of what is what we would normally work and what's currently locked in the contract in terms of the schedule, which I've already done internally inside the department. And we're going to 12-hour shifts starting at 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. This MOU, though, because of what's going on, there are other sections of the contract that are also affected, and the MOU puts the understanding in place, memorializes the understanding between the union and the city in terms of areas of the contract such as sick time accrual, vacation accrual, and that's what I'm asking City Council to approve. Is that ordinance or that MOU?
So I'm clear, we just need legislation allowing you on behalf of the city and also Jim to enter into this new MOU, which modifies the current labor agreement. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Is there any provision in this agreement that you want Steve to talk about? I'm assuming everybody's read it in advance of the meeting, but if not, I have it pulled up here. Do you want to talk about any of the provisions or?
Well, Steve called me whenever, so I'm clear and I understand where he's coming from for the manpower that he has. If anybody gets sick, that he's got people able on call to come in and handle duties. And, you know, I think it's something that was well thought out. And I told him that, you know, I'm in favor, though I'm not a voting member of law committee, but what he did was very good, him and his staff.
Steve, I had one question. I know it refers to the state of emergency, and then once the state of emergency is lifted, this ends. Is that something you would do when the time came?
Yeah, the state of emergency that I put into place, Mark, internally inside of the police department to allow the schedule change to happen, says that it will be lifted when all of the other states of emergency have been lifted. So when the federal government, the state of Ohio, and the city lifts its state of emergencies, then everything should revert back to current contract language, and this MOU ceases to have effect.
Okay, and you would be the one doing that then, officially lifting the police department state of emergency.
Correct. And I'm comfortable lifting my state of emergency once City Council declares the city's state of emergency on the 14th or whatever. So
Okay. Very good.
if that makes things cleaner.
Yes.
Hey, Mark, I got a question dealing with this. Now that some reports are saying this may go until August, which cross our fingers it doesn't happen. But in the event that the states of emergency get lifted and then all of a sudden they find out, hey, it's starting up again, would Steve have to come back, or can we just reenact this one or
Well,
reinstate this one with
may
what he
need to do
has?
something different. It would be a simple thing to do. If this is going to be the same thing, I would think council would again authorize him to enter into this MOU again. I don't think it would be a big deal to do that, but there may be something different.
I didn't know if maybe something can be put in there, like in the event that this occurs after it's lifted, discretion of the police chief, it can be enacted again without, if say all of council's not there or anything else like that, that it can automatically go back in just for this coronavirus thing.
I'll look at that. I'd like to do it the way we're just doing it now. Just deal with this one, and if something else comes
Okay.
up.
Okay, that's fine. Just tossing something out there.
Steve, the 12-hour shifts that are going to start tomorrow, the idea behind those is basically that it's better to have fewer bodies crossing over with one another. Is that right?
That's a big part of it. We back in the middle of March, we put that into place too, where we were trying to minimize contacts between shifts that were coming on duty and shifts that were going off duty. So that stuff was kind of in place, and we've eliminated that overlap. But this allows us to have officers who are at home, hopefully self-quarantining for a 14-day period, where they are doing their best to stay healthy and be available for immediate recall should they be needed. And it also allows for, it's a 14-day rotation, which seems to be the typical quarantine period. So if an officer were to get sick on day 2 of their normal work schedule, we've got buffers in place to put them out for 14 days and still maintain manpower.
I gotcha. So the council resolution that ratifies the memorandum of understanding has more to do with keeping sick time and vacation time on the old shift schedule than the emergency in action that you're already going to do, right?
Correct. It's not, yeah, it's memorializing that part of it. The simple schedule change, the contract allowed me to do that. But when it came to changing vacation accrual, sick time accrual, and a couple of other things there, that's where I thought and Jim thought it would be better if council approved that.
So what's the word from the rank and file? Good idea, bad idea, what?
Well, half the department wanted to do 12-hour shifts anyway about a year ago, and we didn't do that. Really, the support has been overwhelming, and even with talking to the union people, and they've been involved in this from the very beginning, pretty much. They understand this is a different time that none of us have dealt with before, and they're so far have been on board with doing what needs to be done to support the department and keep doing what we do.
Good to hear. I'm for it, Paul.
Yes, I am too. Mike?
I'm in favor. I would like to know what the expected impact will be on our budget monthly, expectations of impact on our monthly budget.
I expect overtime is going to go down, so we're going to see some savings there with essentially officers not attending court at this point. Only absolutely necessary court cases are going. There's that reduction in overtime. I refuse to allow our officers to work 16 or 18 hours straight. So the plan is if somebody calls in sick an hour before their shift and says, hey, I woke up, I've got 103 fever, I can't come in. Those people who are on immediate on-call reserve status are going to be the first ones that are called back in. They were being paid to stay in, and they're going to come in and continue to work on straight time and not overtime or anything like that. So I'm hoping that we see on a temporary basis a reduction in overtime. The salary line's pretty much going to stay the same though.
Okay, Steve, it sounds like you put a lot of thought into it and really kind of been forward thinking in this. So yeah, I think it's something that even if there had been an impactful cost, that'd be one of those things that you have to, that we as a city just have to take care of those officers out there. And so I'm definitely in favor.
Mike, I will add one more thing, or all of you, I will add one more thing. This schedule has our officers working 84 hours in a 2-week payroll period. The union agreed to those 84 hours being paid at straight time. So those 4 hours above the normal 40-hour work week, 80-hour pay period are not being paid at the overtime rate.
Very, very nice.
Oh, very helpful. All right. Should we go to the next item then? Is everyone okay with this?
Yes.
Good. Yes.
All right, next item then, Mr. Lucas. Thank you,
Yeah,
Chief.
the next
Same
one
one.
next one's related to our 2 hotels that we have loans out to, and I will let Scott, as I scroll up to the cover letter, start talking about those.
Good afternoon. Bimal Patel, the developer and owner of the Hyatt Place connected to the convention center, reached out to us about a week and a half ago, kind of explaining his situation and the drastic drop off right away in occupancy, and asked if we could consider some modifications to the loan to allow him to kind of vacate a couple of quarters, similar to some debt relief that he received in the private sector through the federal legislation. So we looked at it. In essence, what we're proposing here is on the Hyatt Place is really sort of a vacation of the loan for 2 quarters. There would be no $25,000 quarterly payment that would be due here at the beginning of the 2nd quarter, and then again in the beginning of the 3rd quarter. We would not accrue interest during this time, and he would pay the TOT, the transient occupancy tax, but we won't be counting that towards his loan repayment because these are going to be pretty low quarters for them. So budget wise, this obviously does kind of slow down some money that's coming in the door on the loan. We only budgeted $100,000 and repayment towards the general fund and loan. Last year we received 184, so there's a little bit of a cushion to help absorb what we're proposing here. And Jim's showing now, this is a letter Bimal sent, kind of explaining his situation and thanking us for any consideration we would give to the matter. On the Rolling Hills, or I'm sorry, on the future Delta Marriott, that was a little bit different. It's a forgivable loan for some issues prior to the current public health emergency. They had some slowdown in getting the Delta flag up in place. They're currently projecting that to be in July. So they were already kind of having some slow times to begin. A lot of the stuff in our earlier agreement started January 1 because they were going to have the flag in place. They were expecting it last fall. So this is deferring everything in that agreement back 1 year to kind of kick off in 2021. That's obviously different than what we're proposing on the Hyatt Place. And the reason is just kind of, they are a little bit different animal. The Delta Marriott agreement is a forgivable loan, and the way it's drafted, it's much easier to just roll that one off a single year and kind of push everything forward. I don't think it's in the version we had here, but in the cover memo I sent out by email yesterday, we also proposed a provision that the mayor would be authorized to sort of extend more It is right there. I apologize. It proposes, if we need to do some more debt relief in 2020 or 2021, we would, the mayor would be authorized to do that. We would be doing measures similar to what we're doing here. We would not be forgiving any loan balance. But there's a fair chance that this industry will kind of take a little bit longer than most to get back on board.
Go ahead, Jim.
Scott, Scott, I had a question for you about the Hyatt Place loan.
Yeah.
We're not collecting for the second and third quarters of this year. Did I see that we are going to extend that for 2 quarters, or are we just wiping out that payment for 2 quarters?
No, we're not. Really all we're going to do is sort of act like these next 2 quarters don't happen for this loan, for the purposes of this loan. And we'll tack on 2 quarters at the end. And
That's
we'll
what I thought I'd read that, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah. So we're not really forgiving any loan balance, with the exception of, you could say, we're sort of not adding to the loan balance by not accruing interest. So we also, kind of in the fine print here, we authorized the mayor and the developer to come up with a replacement for LIBOR. This is a little bit of a kitchen sink thing, but throwing this on here. But we had this issue existing already on the loan as something we needed to address here in the next year. LIBOR is set to go away in 2020, after 2021. And so we wanted to go ahead and have the option to take care of that.
Scott, is there any objection to bifurcating these into 2 pieces of legislation? Doing a Hyatt Place legislation and a Delta legislation?
No, I think that's pretty easily done. I think we could do that.
Yeah,
Good.
I was one of the only no votes on the Delta legislation, and I, still have the same objections. So,
yeah,
but I, don't.
Right.
I'd support the other one because that's ratifying something that's already in existence.
Understand. And the Delta doesn't really carry the cash flow liquidity relief to the hotel that the Delta does. The Delta obviously does provide some much needed relief for them. So I wanted to kind of point that difference out as well.
Sorry to make more work for you, Mark.
I'm optimistic the way that the cover letters kind of bulleted out that the legislation might kind of plug and play from this anyways.
Other than that, I'm good with it moving forward. I mean, that doesn't, I think I'm being clear about my expectation that I won't vote for the Marriott stuff, but I'll support the Hyatt Place stuff, but that doesn't mean I have a problem with it going out of law committee.
Mike, are you okay with it?
I'm good. I'm in favor of both. I know Casey's feeling on this. He and I have talked about this quite a bit. It's one of the few things that we kind of see a little differently. But in this case, I know that Delta has not opened its doors to guests as of yet. They've not had, they did host an event. I know because we had the Princeton Pride Gala there, but at that time there were no people staying there, and there still isn't, of course. And so hard to generate funds when you don't have people coming in to use your business. So I'm in favor of both, and I'm also in favor of making it 2 separate pieces of legislation in this case, and I think Casey has a fair request on that. So, but I'm good. I support both.
I would make the same statement. I agree with you, Mike. Support both, separate them. I'm good. Would that be adequate for you, Mark?
Yes, I'll
And
get with
Tim?
Scott to make sure I got the specifics for each one down, but yeah, that's no problem.
If we're moving on, Scott, do you, I neglected to put your county auditor thing in my packet, the revised packet today at the office. Do you have that handy? So you can talk-
Yeah, I think I can.
This is the one add-on that I was talking about before. It has to do with something that we have to get through council for the county. Scott emailed this out, so you guys should have some reference point for it, but hopefully he could pull it up as well.
Is that the alternate method of apportioning the local government fund?
Yeah, yeah. I could talk to it rather simply. I think you have to give me permission to share my screen.
I can see you. I don't know how that. Are you going to do something else, Scott?
We're trying to pull it up.
Okay.
I think if
I can jump in here and try to get that going.
okay.
Oh, you're going to put that where our agenda is right now. Is that right?
Yeah, we're going to try to.
Okay.
Josh, is that easier to give me access so I can pull it up, or can I just send it to you?
Actually, Jim is sharing his screen right now. You should be able to, Jim, if you stop sharing your screen. Now, Scott, you should have the rights to
Okay.
share yours.
Let me make sure I get the right one. All right. Is that up now? Or wait, hold on. There we go. Is that up?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
All right. All right.
It may have changed the view for people as well. So,
Okay. Okay.
but yeah, it's up.
All right. This is a pretty simple piece of legislation. The county auditor sent us out a letter just a week or two before the stay-at-home stuff all happened. So we nearly forgot about this. But what this is saying is that back in 1988, they came up with an alternate method for handing out local government funds in Hamilton County. Before that, they had always gone by a statutory method, which not everybody felt was fair. So every 8 years, it requires renewal to continue this forward. So we last did this in 2012. So it made it rather easy to kind of roll that resolution forward. I went ahead and drafted that as well. But what this is doing is just continuing the way Hamilton County is distributing local government funds.
What gives us more money, the statutory way or this way?
I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, they did this in 88 and renewed it again in 95, 04, and 12. So I did not go back to kind of see who it benefited.
Just curious.
The way the approval process works, I think it skips the largest city. So based on that, I kind of want to say that we're probably getting a better deal than we did statutorily, but that's a guess.
Okay. Paul, I'm good.
I'm good also.
Good with me.
All right.
And then the last item, or am I on mute?
No, you're good.
Okay. The last item is a discussion item that hopefully Steve's still here to talk about his interest in rejoining DART. Steve, are you still here?
I'm still here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is something I started looking into again back in January, and it kind of got pushed to the side because of other things that were going on. For those that aren't familiar, DART is the Drug Abuse Reduction Task Force. It was a multi-jurisdictional group formed back in the mid 1980s, I believe, somewhere around 84, 85. Sharonville was a founding member of DART back in the 80s, and we continued to participate in the group until sometime in the mid 2000s, where we dropped out of it for, it's my understanding, a couple of different reasons. DART was put together to deal with street level drug dealing, going after drug traffickers and those type of things. Over the years, it's evolved, and it's still its main purpose is doing the same thing, but it works very cooperatively now with some of the larger task forces, the Regional Narcotics Unit, and very closely with the DEA's task force and those type of things. DART's been a huge help, even though we haven't been a member agency for about 10 or 15 years. They've still been a big help, but DART approached me asking if we would be interested in becoming a member agency, partly out of selfish reasons. It makes it easier for them to justify spending time in our jurisdiction, helping out in Sharonville if we're a member. You know, their primary focus is supporting the member agencies and the communities of those member agencies. The memo of understanding that we would be entering into with DART is attached, along with some appendixes to that. I will say that they're not strictly following those things at this point. The attachments to the MOU state that there are member agency fees that are assessed, and that there are opportunities for asset forfeiture sharing. Neither one of those two things are occurring right now and have not occurred for about the last 5 or 6 years. So member agencies are not contributing financially to DART, and DART has been able to be self-sufficient through grants and not sharing asset forfeitures with the city, you know, with the participating municipalities or participating agencies. I see this as a huge benefit for us, whether we ever see any asset forfeiture or not. Like I say, DART has been a very good partner, and I think that partnership would only be strengthened by being a member agency again. I think that some of the work that they do, and they're actually excited about maybe being able to come into Sharonville and do even more work and some of the hotels and addressing some of the issues that we have going on there.
Yep.
They're not asking for manpower at this point, although once this COVID-19 virus is over and we're able to get back to full staff and get all of the people that I've got out hurt and stuff, I would certainly be more than interested in trying to have our officers or a officer at a time assigned to DART for the experience and to, you know, just be a good law enforcement partner in Hamilton County. So that's what I want to do. Like I say, this was something that got started back in January, but is not a huge priority at this point, but it's not probably real difficult to do unless, you know, if you guys are in agreement.
I had one question. Would you be the one actually entering to this agreement, or would Jim or both of you, as far as who is going to be authorized to do this?
I think it would be Jim, Mark.
Okay.
I think the law enforcement mutual aid agreement says that it is the administration of the city. And since this falls under that mutual aid agreement and stuff, I think that's probably Jim.
Okay. I thought so, but I just want to be clear. That's why I'll prepare it then.
Mike, are you all right with this? And Casey?
I am. Question again about finances. Other than possibly involving manpower down the road, is there any financial commitment to being a member of DART?
At this point, no. The MOU is being reworked, is my understanding. I mean, this was last updated in late 19, but I've got emails from the commander of DART saying that they're reworking the two portions that have financial impact, both the asset forfeiture portion of the addendums and the agency fees. So it's as simple as if the board that controls DART decided to reinstitute agency fees, and we did not want to, you know, we just would need to participate at that point if we weren't in a position to do that. And if asset forfeiture ever does occur, I consider that a bonus.
Thank you, Steve. Well, I'm definitely in favor of this, especially when you consider the impact of, of people that are not residents of Sharonville, transients that bring drugs into our city. I think it definitely need to want to support this.
Hey, Steve, this is Rob. I got a question. What's their manpower currently at right now?
I want to say that they're at about 12 people, Rob.
Okay, because
Varies
I
a
know
little bit from here to there, and I don't know what's going on with other, there may be agencies pulling people out for manpower at their own departments at this point, but when we talked in January, I believe the number was 12.
Okay, because I know whenever talking with people that I know, a lot of agencies were pulling out because whenever Springfield Township took over from Blue Ash, there was a lot of things that changed to where if they was to try to set something up in their town, though they were a member, they didn't have the manpower to do the surveillance or anything else like that. That's what I was curious about as far as their manpower, because I heard at one time they was only down to 2 agents in Dart, and they were both from Springfield Township.
Yeah, that's some of the turmoil that that was from back in 2010 or 2005, 2010 when we pulled out. There were some leadership issues, there were some management issues, and if you'd asked me 5 or 6 years ago about doing this, I probably would have been against it. But the changes put in place and the way it's being run now, in cooperation with some of the other agencies, I think it's a good time to get back involved.
Okay. Well, you understand where I'm coming from back to that time frame.
I do.
Okay.
But you also probably remember what it was like back in the 90s too, when we were still in there.
Yeah, baby. No doubt. Okay.
Chief, I don't know about the changes you're talking about, and I've only been interacting with DART for about the last 10 years. And to be politic, I don't necessarily have a high opinion of the organization. I have interacted with a number of their agents or assigned officers, and I think highly of them as individuals, but DART, and when I saw this on the agenda, I conducted an informal survey among some of my colleagues at the prosecutor's office, and I did that on the condition of anonymity, but none of them had anything good to say about DART. DART is widely regarded as a low rent renew. And so if there's, a reason you really want to get into it because you've seen a change, I back you, but
I would, that what you're saying there, Casey, gives me pause at this point. I mean, I've seen the law enforcement side, and I've seen how they've been able to come in and help us out, and they've done things. It seems like by the book and the way that I would want our guys to be doing it. That they don't seem to be the cowboys that they were back in the 90s, maybe. But I don't see the prosecution side of it. I don't see the type of work necessarily that they're putting together outside of what they've done in Sharonville.
Well, I mean, I think of these drug task force agencies as being designed, or the purpose of them, to go after the higher level stuff. And when you were talking about it, you said they focus more on street level. Now, street level is basically all I've seen. I don't have statistics for you or anything like that. I mean, I'm going purely anecdotal based on my own experience. And like I say, I verified with 5 of my colleagues to see if any of them had an opposite experience, because I was really looking for something opposite of my own experience. And I mean, real low-level felony F4, F5 stuff. You know, if we want to get a guy in there so that he has more experience writing search warrants, you know, participating in search warrants, that kind of thing, I think that's a fair objective, but I just don't hold DART in high regard. That's the best way I can say it.
Okay.
So I don't know if you want to check with some other agencies, or if, you know, one of those objectives, like I said, like you want to get guys in to get more experience with that stuff. That's great, you know, but I was concerned because I just wanted to, you know, I was worried about saying it. So that's all.
Casey, it sounds like that you're not concerned with as much with the intended purpose of DART, but you're more concerned about the performance.
That's fair. Yeah, I think DART as a organization on paper absolutely has value, but the practice. I mean, I know I'm in a unique position, right? Having my day job, so I see it in practice, and I just don't see good casework coming from the DART organization. The Sharonville officers that bring us cases and give us case files, hands down, is 10 times better than anything I get from the DART organization. Okay. And I know I'm biased, but I still stand by that statement. So, you know, I know there are things that if we assign an officer, that basically, you know, the way it's written is they could charge us a fee, but Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, you're basically saying in practice, they're not doing that. And that's good. So there's not a downside to that necessarily. The only downside that I see is taking an officer or multiple officers off of our streets and assigning them to DART. Is that fair, Chief? That's the downside?
That's one downside. Yeah, that's the downside. Or that they want to start charging, you know, not getting the service that would be commensurate with whatever fee we may be willing to provide.
What kind of time frame commitment are they looking for?
Yeah, for an officer commitment?
No, just like, do they want us to join for a year? Do they want us to join indefinitely? Do they want us to join for 5 years?
I'm sure that they would like us to be a member as long as the group continues to exist, which I don't know how long that's going to be. I mean,
but basically we're in it as long as we want to be in it. Is that what?
That's the way it's explained to me, and that's the way I understand it, and that's the way I'm looking at it, is we could be in it for as long as we want to be.
You know, I think if we take an officer that wants that kind of experience, but you know, on a trial run, that kind of thing. The thing is I want to support you, Chief, but I wouldn't feel like I was doing my job if I didn't speak up about the way I feel personally, having had cases with DART.
I appreciate that completely, and it's a, if it functions the way that it's supposed to function, like you said, on paper, it's an organization that would be a huge benefit in dealing with some of the problems we have going on in our hotels. That's the way I'm looking at it. We've given them 5 or 6, you know, we've given them intelligence on 5 or 6 different cases over the last however many months. And they're all about taking that information and trying to do the best they can with it. But as not being a member, they have to, it makes it difficult for their command staff to justify spending time in a Sharonville hotel working confidential informant to buy drugs to do that when other jurisdictions that are members have those same problems.
Understood.
Hey, Steve, it's Rob. The question I have is, I've got friends that are been with Renew and things like that, and is one of the reasons you want to try to get back with DART is Renew mainly likes going for the big stuff, and they don't really like working in the hotels unless they know that there's going to be a big score. Is that somewhat of a logical reason to get back with DART? So being able to do more work.
Renew is almost exclusively a Hamilton County Sheriff's Office operation now.
Correct.
I think Green Township may have 1 or 2 officers assigned to Renew, but they are almost exclusively Hamilton County Sheriff's Office.
Right. Right.
PD pulled out, so I'm not sure that would be a good fit for us.
Okay. Well, that's why I was
I'm looking to do a couple of different things. I've been looking to do a couple of different things. One, have an opportunity for some of our young officers that are eager and they're go-getters and they want to go out there and they want to do some things to help out the community, and specifically when it comes to drugs and all of the other problems that come along with that, prostitution and thefts and those type of things. Have an opportunity to get some experience, to learn some things, learn how to write a search warrant, learn how to put together an operations plan, learn how to do an undercover drug buy, those type of things, learn how to work a confidential informant. We had an officer assigned with the Hamilton County Heroin Task Force, and the experience he gained was invaluable. I see those opportunities. Renew, I don't really see as an option because it's pretty much exclusive with the Sheriff's Office. The DEA approached me about a year ago wanting us to assign another officer to the DEA Drug Task Force. They're asking for a 2-year commitment, so I don't see that as a good fit for us either. So DART offers and I hear Casey's concerns, and like I say, 5 or 6 years ago, I would have shared some of those concerns. I don't hear those concerns now from the people that I've talked to. But DART offers a really good fit, and I think it would be, if they do it right and we participate in the proper way and we utilize them the way we should be, I think they're going to be a huge benefit in dealing with some problems in the hotels.
Let me say this, the stuff that you just outlined as far as the experience that some of our officers can gain, that, as I was thinking about this prior to the meeting, was, one of the only reasons that I think we should consider getting reassociated with DART. And so that being your reason, I support you, so I support this. It's basically where I come from. I just, I'd like you to keep an eye on it and really communicate with whatever officers assigned to see what they think about whether or not their time is best spent there.
I appreciate that.
I would make a comment.
I want to make sure they're getting good experience, not
right.
bad experience.
Yep.
I would just make a comment too, this Paul. Chief, there are a couple of things I like about it, in the sense that I support you, and I really I like the fact that this isn't a commitment that is for a certain period of time. We have options available to us, but even more importantly, from a totally different perspective, from some of my other, I would say, church activities, the drug problems in the hotels and motels is something that you are aware of very much so, and so are we in a sense. And anything that we could do to work on that is very much appreciated. And I can see that as a real big positive. So I would support that on that basis. It's not a firm commitment for a fixed period of time. Plus, it can help us in what I believe is one of our most troubled areas. So I would support you, Chief.
Okay. It's also, Paul, it's also one more resource. I mean,
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's what I mean. I see some of this from a different perspective of being involved in these in certain assistance areas, shall we say. And it's just, yes, agreed.
You guys created the hotel liaison position, and we were all working together as a city, city council, city administration, police department. We were trying to get that ball rolling to deal with some of the problems. And this would have been, and it is going to be, one more tool that we can use to, whether we use the health departments or the state fire marshal or the building department to address some of the issues in the hotels. This is one more tool that we'll have, I think.
I just want to mention too that one of the handouts that we have amongst our group is what Mr. Singh has done at the Travel Inn. And he is pretty active in enforcing this and working with the Sharonville Police Department. He does publish that to all those residents. And that is one of our, shall we say, troubled areas. So that is something we need to address. So thank you for your efforts.
And it is a good learning experience also from my time. I learned a lot back then, back in the days, but if it's able to be a good program, Steve, you got my backing, though I'm not a voting member. You've done the research, so I think it'd be a good idea to try to get back into it again.
Well, could we pull Mike? Are you okay with it?
I am. I'm also listening really closely to what Casey has to say, and I know he said he's in a unique position, and he certainly is. We all are privy to different information that that the others of us might not be privy to, and I think we have to rely on that as valuable information that Casey has for us. I also think that Steve is going into it with the right attitude as far as joining forces with our police protection here in Sharonville. The one thing I would say is, since we are not, going to join with any kind of commitment for any length of time, is that we would move forward with joining with DART without any other information to them other than to say we're going to participate, but then internally at the end of 90 days, taking a look at the cost benefits, the good and the bad of this, and then making a consideration of whether we want to continue to move forward, and maybe review it at least every 6 months to see from there that, yes, this is the direction it's been working, the direction we want to go, or no, there's been too many problems and it's time for us to pull the plug.
Mike, I would add that I was certainly planning on, if we do this, whether we're actually have one of our officers assigned there as a task force agent, or we are just a participating agency, I was planning on tracking any and all benefits or that we get from, being involved again, along with any problems that we may have, because it's going to be something new for all of us.
Sure. Well, again,
Okay,
it seems like, Steve, it seems like you've thought this out and you're on top of everything. And so I'm still in favor of supporting Steve on this, and just keeping a cautious look at it. Thanks to the information I learned today from Casey.
Hey, Steve, is it possible to be a membership without putting one of our guys on the task force to monitor to see how everything goes before one of our guys joins?
Yeah, I don't think we have to commit anything. The MOU again says that based on our size of agency, they'd want us to be committing somebody, but they're staffed at a level right now where they don't need us to do that. I don't know what kind of a read we will get without having somebody in there, but if we are able to put somebody there and we carefully choose who we put there, I'm pretty comfortable that we would get a pretty good read on what's going on.
Okay.
So this was only on for a discussion item. You want us to bring it back to the law committee next meeting, the actual legislation? Are you comfortable with moving on the legislation now for next week's meeting? That's up to you guys.
Well, I would rather move on, in a sense, as in this from my position, because I see some upsides. I'm familiar from a different perspective, and I really appreciate Casey's, and I can see what he's saying, but also from a different perspective, I see a lot of issues that if anything can work to help resolve this, and the chief is on top of it, I would rather sooner than later. Because it's, again, I have a different perspective. Casey has one, I have one, and the chief, I really am, anything that we can do to address it, I really would support. I would prefer if the other two members agree to get moving on it, rather than, I don't know what we would change in the time frame. If the chief does what he says he's going to do, we can do that down the road.
Yep, I agree. I've said my piece, and I know the chief's going to stay on top of it. So,
And Jim, you had this down. The caption was proposed voice vote or motion or discussion. Do you want me to actually prepare a resolution on this?
Yeah, that was just my question, Mark, and it sounds like the law committee wants us to proceed forward with legislation.
Okay, and I would go by resolution. So we would just have a emergency resolution, just one reading then, if that's okay with everybody.
I'm
good.
fine with it, Mark.
I'm good.
Okay.
Move to adjourn.
Is
And
there
Paul,
any other guests?
I have one more little quick item.
Oh, okay.
At a law committee meeting that I missed, I think because of my kidney stone, Anna Elderling talked with you guys about the whole flavored e-cigarettes, and you had asked her to send out letters to all the retailers and invite them to a law committee meeting. Wanted to let you know we've kind of put that on hold given this whole COVID-19 issue. Would you guys still want to proceed with that in the near future, or is that something that you would think that we should push off into the, until months from now?
Push it off.
I'd really prefer to wait because, yeah, but there's too much going on right now.
Okay, yeah, that's what we were thinking as well. So I'll let her know to push it off for a while and go from there.
Thank you.
The one thing I would say is that it seems like that we are all singularly focused on how long the quarantine is going to last and what we're going to how we're, when it's going to be, primarily when it's going to be that we come out of this and how we proceed from there. The one thing that I would just really ask everyone to keep on your mind is that almost everything I've seen says it's coming back. So when it comes back a second time as COVID-19 or in some other form, I just think that the people have a tendency to think now we're going to go through this now so that when it's over, we can just move forward, not have to worry about it again. When it comes back, I'm afraid people are going to say, not again, we're not doing this again. So I think that we always, whatever emergencies we put in place, just keep in mind that there's a very good chance that we will see that again, something along these lines before the end of this year.
All right. Do we now have any other discussions? Are we ready to have a motion for adjournment?
I'll motion to adjourn. Second Mike's motion.
Okay, all those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay safe, everybody.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Not too many hiccups, Jim. Good job. Good job, Josh.
Yeah, that's all Josh, not me.
Josh,
Good job, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
You're welcome. Have a good night, everybody.
Good
I might
night.
be calling you.
Thanks, Josh.
Yep.
hey, Josh, for the council meeting, are we going to get another link where we won't need to, we just click on it and that'll get us into it?
Correct. Yep. All future Zoom meetings will come like they came today in a separate calendar invite with a new link.
So we don't need a password or anything like that?
You don't, if you have the link, you don't need a password. You can actually join. So in those calendar invites, there's a link. And then under the link, there's meeting ID and password.
Mm-hmm.
If you have the Zoom app opened on your computer or on your iPhone or any mobile device, instead of clicking the link, you can actually type in the meeting ID and then it'll ask for the password.
Okay.
So there's two ways to connect. You can connect using meeting ID, then the password. If you have the link, you don't need the password.
Okay, but we will get that for next Tuesday.
Yes, and you'll also get one for
Thursday?
Thursday.
Oh, the-
Thursday, 6 o'clock, we're doing a dry run.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
And that is going to be a little bit different than this meeting. This meeting is just a standard Zoom meeting on Thursday. And for the council meeting on Tuesday, we're going to be doing a webinar. So the webinar, instead of everyone joining as participants, you council members will be joining as panelists. So your interface might look a little different. I mean, it's going to be pretty much almost the same. There's just going to be a few nuances with what the meeting looks like in that webinar format.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yep, you're welcome.